Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer, talking about the full moon in Taurus that's coming up on the 11th and 12th of November. So it's about a week away. I thought I'd get this one in just a little bit earlier in order for you guys to have the opportunity to digest this information and use it as you wish, as it serves you. So look, I mean, first thing is this, that, a couple of weeks ago, well, it will be a couple of weeks ago, in a week's time, the new moon cycle started in Scorpio, which had the opposition to Uranus. And that was a very, very powerful new beginning of the cycle of the moon, drawing in the archetype, the energy of Uranus. I've done a whole video on that, so obviously I'm not going to unpack that, but we do need to bring it into the context of what we're stepping into now. The Scorpio new moon certainly began the journey of our own self, exploring and seeing the deeper shadow components of ourself as related to others as well. Because the Scorpio archetype, the Scorpio house, always takes us into the territory of where we merge psychologically, emotionally, sexually, spiritually with another person. It's very intense territory. Even if we are not in a relationship, the Scorpio new moon took us into those deep waters of our own psyche, our own unconscious and subconscious components, where we are able to, provided we allow ourselves to see our deepest fears and limitations. So the 8th house contains the ability to transform, Scorpio energy, the ability to regenerate, purge, transmute. But before we do that, we must be able to see and face what our personal limitations are. Now, the Uranus component would have potentially brought up some unexpected or unpredictable type of material in our consciousness, and certainly in our circumstances as well, connecting to a partner, to deep, intimate connections that we have with another or others. So not an easy new moon necessarily, but loaded with the potential to recognize our own personal limitations and how we can free and liberate ourselves through that journey. So now moving into this full moon in Taurus, it's an incredible full moon, by the way. It has an exact conjunction to the goddess Vesta. Now, I love the goddesses, as I have frequently expressed, and I've done, a few different videos on the different asteroid goddesses. Vesta is a personal favorite. I have her conjunct my Mars, very, very tightly conjunct my Mars. So the vibration of Vesta resonates very strongly with me. And for any of you who have Vesta located in a personal space in your chart, you will strongly resonate and vibrate with her energy. The goddess Vesta is probably one of the more complex goddesses, in my opinion. Her mythology and pathology is extremely complex and takes us into incredibly deep dimensions. She correlates to our sexual alchemical energy. The sexual energy being used in such a way as to transform and to focus into something that's very close to our heart, basically. So this full moon being conjunct Vesta is symbolizing and reflecting our own personal journey of what it is that we need to now become more aware of, because the full moon is always the sun and the moon opposite each other in the heavens, as most of you would be aware. So the full moon brings with it a sense of illumination, clarity, or awareness about a given situation. The context that we need to apply to that is, as I said, the new moon in Scorpio, the territory that took us into to investigate our own personal limitations and how that shows up in our intimate, closest connections. So the energy of that was incredibly intense, stirred up a lot of things for a lot of people. I know that. Brought up some matters from the past as well. Venus in Scorpio has contributed to that. Venus has just ingressed into Sagittarius, which I just did a video about a couple of days ago. We also have Mercury retrograde in Scorpio and the Sun in Scorpio. So this full moon is opposite the Sun and Mercury in Scorpio. So there's going to be very strong personal, mental messages or mental identification with our own thinking about what we're seeing through this full moon. Vesta, as I was saying, is an incredibly complex goddess, but to simplify it and to help you understand really what the essence and core of what she represents, it's really what is extremely close to our heart, the heart center. She's the goddess of the hearth, Hearth, keeper of sacred flame. Now, the word hearth in Latin means focus. So Goddess Vesta is the principle of focus and commitment through sacred devotional application. So the full moon in Taurus is suggesting that the transformational work that we began, let's say, with the new moon in Scorpio, whatever we initiated during that time or confronted us without our wanting, we are now able to see it through this illumination of the full moon. And because Scorpio has such an intense vibration and takes us into the shadow component, the deeper, darker shadow components of our psyche, which we don't often like to visit, stepping into this full moon, we now have the opportunity to ground ourselves. It's a sense of stabilizing our center, our self. And it has to come through the body. It's body work. So it's anchoring and grounding and reconnecting back with ourself to have a better understanding of our own sense of self. Because, as I said, Scorpio took us into these deeper, darker dimensions, intense layers where there could have been extreme difficulty for some people of things that showed up or that needed to be looked at. And now we have to sort of take a step back, and the full moon in Taurus is enabling us to do that. It's showing us where we have done some work on ourselves or in relationships. And now we're coming back to our own center. And the moon connects to the body as well, the emotional body. But Taurus connects to the physical body. And Vesta has very much to do with the because she connects to our sexual energy and to our personal focus and commitment of what emanates from our heart. It's time now with this full moon to notice what it is we need to restabilize ourselves, recenter ourselves. And it's a very powerful vibration and energy to enable us to do that work for ourselves, to take a step back from the intensity of stepping into those deep waters of Scorpio. Taurus is a fixed yin earth sign, feminine sign. The Vesta is speaking to what is it that's really close to your heart about your own personal journey relating to how you can recenter and stabilize yourself. What is it that you need to do to anchor yourself again? Because when we go into the water signs, we step into this field of the unconscious, which is the vast ocean, and there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of waves. Sometimes there's a tsunami, sometimes it's still waters, but we are accessing the astral body, we are accessing the emotional body, we are accessing the unconscious, subconscious components within, where I'm sure you've seen this image of an iceberg in the ocean, and the iceberg on the surface of the water is reflecting just that small part of our everyday waking consciousness, where we filter through what we think is going on. And the ocean underneath, which is Neptune, which is where the entirety of all truth exists, and other layers as well pertaining to Cancer and Scorpio, is so vast and so complex. And if we were operating from that level on a daily basis, it would be too much for us. So we have, you could say, the ego serves as some form of a protective mechanism to keep things in place and sort of structured and ordered in a way, because if everything was filtering through our unconscious components 24/7, we'd probably all be walking around looking, quite insane. There's a lot going on internally within all of us. So when we are connecting with water signs, water energy, going back to that new moon in Scorpio, we are activating and accessing these deeper components that are incredibly intense, but that hold very important material pertaining to this life and every other life you've lived as well. So we have these little windows of opportunity. We take steps towards resolving matters that have been imprinted, matters that are unresolved, matters that are hidden, matters that are extremely complex and are very difficult to work through on a daily basis. So we have these transits of whether it's the new moon, full moon, and all the other planets, all the other bodies that present us with these windows of opportunity to access these layers. So now going into the full moon in Taurus, the work that we've done on that deep emotional psychic level, we have the opportunity to ground and anchor and stabilize ourselves again, which is a really important point. Taurus is the archetype that enables us to ground ourselves. Some of the keywords, it's a sign of attachment as well. It's what reflects our need to survive. So it brings up matters of self-sufficiency, preservation. It's connected to our values, to security, our senses, our physical senses in our body. So stepping into this full moon, we step into that sphere of our physicality. And the other important thing to understand about that as well is, if you think about Taurus being opposite Scorpio, which it is, and just before Scorpio is the sign of Libra, right? So from Taurus to Libra, that angle, that distance, that aspect between Taurus and Libra is 150 degrees, and that's called a quincunx, or in conjunct. And the inconjunct or quincunx aspect is often referred to as the aspect that requires us to readjust ourself or matters. So the Taurus, the Taurus energy is the energy where we ground, anchor, preserve, stabilize our own sense of self-worth. And when we go into Scorpio, we take that part of ourself into Scorpio and we merge and connect and have a number of different experiences, including seeing where we have some fears and where we have very deep personal limitations. So the intensity of Scorpio is so full on, as most of you would be aware, that we do need to come back into Taurus to basically to recenter and ground. The quincunx to Libra mirrors or reflects the process and experience of when we are alone and we withdraw from others, as in connecting with others, one-on-one connections with people. We do need to come back to that center and restabilize our sense of self. We have to do that, because that is the process of understanding yourself better, nurturing yourself, caring for yourself, loving yourself, understanding your own values. That's a very important experience and process of life. And the more we can do that, the more we have to offer and give to another when we step into that 7th house or we step into that 8th house. So that the Taurus-Libra angle is saying that when we are too removed and we become isolated and we become withdrawn, we are reminded through the archetype of Libra that we actually do need others. We do need to step into relationship with others, because this is how we grow and evolve. But when we are in the Libran territory, we can also lose our sense of identity, our own sense of self. So when we get too enmeshed in the Scorpio and Libra territory and we lose an aspect of ourself or our own sense of self, as it were, that's when we withdraw and we come back into the 2nd house, Taurus, and we restabilize, ground and anchor, recenter ourselves in order to get an understanding of where we are within our own self. So these are the energies that are playing out with the new moon in Scorpio and full moon in Taurus. So the intensity of what's been happening the last couple of weeks can be settled, slowed down a bit with the full moon in Taurus. Also, with the Vesta principle being right there with the full moon, the focus and attention needs to be on you. It needs to be on what is calling you from your heart center, where you need to actually really focus and commit to your own personal sense of self-work. Because again, the more work you do on yourself, the more love you have to give and share with others. The more we are looking for love in others, through others, to feed back to us, the more we're going to chase that. And it's like a cat chasing its tail. You'll never get it, because we all have to find that within ourselves first. So the Taurus full moon takes us back into that center of ourself and becoming grounded and connected and centered, and reassessing as well our own sense of self-worth, values, and aligning with or recognizing an area of your life that you really are wanting to apply a strong commitment and focus in. And it's a Taurus archetype that we're talking about, so it has to come back to the component of you that connects to your own self-worth, reestablishing that. We've gone into the Scorpio territory, we've investigated and probed, or we've struggled, or we've had conflict, but we've seen some things have been reflected back to us. Some things may not have been very nice. Others would have managed it better because they were just ready to face the limitations or to face what is needing to be evolved and transformed and seen through the X-ray vision of Scorpio. So just a couple of comments because I've made a couple of notes. So Vesta represents the ways in which we face the issues of personal integration, work, devotion, commitment, and sacrifice. Now, if you think about those words, and Vesta is conjunct the moon, it's really got to do about body work, because the moon and Vesta are both in Taurus, which is the physical body. So the work around what was revealed through Scorpio, the intensity of those layers of what was revealed about our fears, limitations, struggles, whatever it may be, now takes us back into seeing through the full moon. Remember, the full moon is illumination, awareness, crystallization, clarity. The seeing now has to be applied through merging back with your own physicality, your own physical body. So body work is very powerful during this full moon. And the dedication and the devotion that can be applied during this time especially is incredibly powerful through the body. Now, the emotional body is also being highlighted here because of the moon, right? The moon is the container. It's literally the container of what holds everything. So the matter of your own self-worth, your own internal values, and what you've discovered about yourself through the experience of stepping into the Scorpio components, now you have the opportunity to anchor and ground a firmer, stronger sense of self. Because remember, we're always becoming. We're not the same person we were yesterday even. There is always a process of evolution taking place. We don't necessarily see it all the time, as in see it out there, because the majority of it is happening within us. But the experiences that happen out there, such as the relationships we have with lovers, friends, families, etc., they all reflect back to us what it is we are working through, where we have grown, and where we may be still quite stagnant. So, as I was saying, in Taurus, she's going to reflect the style of commitment and focus that we are ready to recognize in our own life at the moment, of where we need to apply ourselves with dedication. It's a heart thing. It's not a mental thing. Forget about the thoughts that are going on in your head. We have, can't remember the exact figure, but I think it's around about 50,000 thoughts a day. It's a lot of thinking. Now, if you sit down and think about that, are you aware that you have 50,000 thoughts a day? Do you control those thoughts that come in? No, none of us do. Thoughts are like clouds. They just come and they go. And every now and then we get a glimpse of a particular thought, and either we like it or we don't, so we pay attention to it. But thoughts are just in the mental stream and sphere of things. When it comes to this focus and commitment in relation to Vesta, it has to come from our heart center. The heart center is not about mental dialogue. It's something that we sense and feel and connect with very powerfully and very deeply. So whatever it is we need to focus on and apply commitment to, it is also said that with Vesta, when we're talking about this type of commitment and focus, it has to be to the exclusion of something else in our life in order for us to be able to achieve it. So you have to think about what that might mean for you, because that's going to be different for every single one of us. But fundamentally, we keep coming back to this Taurus archetype, which is about, grounding, re-establishing, having a better, stronger sense of your own self and your own preservation, right? Anchoring, stabilizing, grounding, body work. This is what this full moon is bringing up. Now, it has some other great aspects. It has a trine from Pluto. This full moon in Taurus has a trine from Pluto, and it's a very close trine, which is a really beautiful blessing in that the intense emotional purging or difficulty that we've been through over the last couple of weeks, or maybe some of us have just been, extremely resilient and courageous and just, really were able to finally release something, purge something, right? That's been very deeply embedded or held within us. And now this trine from Pluto is saying that the evolution that's continuing, because evolution, as I said, happens every second. The fact that you are breathing means that you are alive and therefore evolving, right? So evolution is just happening all the time. It doesn't stop. So Pluto, being the planet that connects to our soul's evolution, being the agent of transformation, being the agent of regeneration, the emotional body work that we can do with this full moon in Taurus conjunct Vesta is supported through Pluto. So further integration of our own personal transformational work, that we are now at a position where we need to ground, anchor, withdraw, take a step back, recenter, is being supported by Pluto. So there can be further transformational work, but it's not going to spin you out and throw you off track. It's not going to be dark. It's going to be pleasantly supported by Pluto. The trine is always a supportive aspect. There's a flow, a connection that enables integration and transition in a way of flow as opposed to resistance. So there's no resistance here from Pluto to the moon. There's just total integration and support. and Pluto is in Capricorn, so it's more earth energy as well. I just want to bring up the chart just to have a quick look at something. So this chart is drawn for Melbourne, Australian Eastern Standard Time on the 12th of November, and obviously that will be different for the majority of you, because I know the majority of my viewers are from Europe and America, and I love you all. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching, and thank you for all your beautiful messages and love, and sending you all so much love back. Okay, so in this chart, as you can see, there's Vesta right next to the moon, and the conjunction is exact, literally, to the degree and the minute. Amazing. And there's the Sun in Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio. Mercury is retrograde. And here we have Mars in Libra, which was recently square the nodes. And in this chart, we can see that Chiron is opposite Juno. So these archetypes here, Juno, Chiron, and Mars squaring the nodes, there's been a lot of relationship matters that have come up that have needed courage in showing up, stepping in to true intimacy. And the desire to want to create balance in those relationships has been greatly emphasized with Mars in Libra and Juno in Libra as well. And the Chiron opposite Juno has been speaking to the areas that are not balanced in our relationships that we feel quite hurt about. There's quite a bit of pain around that. So there's been a lot of focus on where is the balance in your relationships. Because remember, Libra, people mistake they have the idea that Libra instantly reflects balance. It doesn't. Libra is seeking to establish balance. That's what that archetype is always doing. So when we have Juno in Libra, Juno is the goddess asteroid who was the wife of Zeus, the planet Jupiter, a very committed wife. So she's the principle of commitment and marriage. In the sign of Libra, and Juno, in Juno's discovery chart, she was discovered in the sign of Aries, which describes her pathology, which was that she was quite an angry goddess in a lot of ways. And that's just, that connects to the relationship she had with Jupiter, with Zeus. So in Libra, there's the matter that is coming up very strongly, and that will be for a few weeks yet, because she's only just entered Libra recently. We're looking at all the imbalances in our partnerships, and that could be, with family, friends, whomever, any one-on-one relationship, all the aspects that are not balanced are going to be highlighted in our consciousness, and there's a strong desire to find and correct the balance. And the Chiron opposite the Juno is bringing up what hurts us about those imbalances that we recognize in our unions, relationships, and so forth. And the Mars in Libra has brought those matters up very strongly too. The warrior archetype in the peaceful archetype of Libra. So there's been this very strong desire again to correct the imbalances in our relationships. So those are some of the other dynamics in this chart. As I said, we have a trine from Pluto to the full moon, and therefore it's obviously sextile the sun. So Pluto's vibration is such that we really have no control over Pluto. Pluto is going to bring what it's going to bring, and it's going to take what it's going to take. And we don't really have a say in that, at least from the personality, ego, desire level of what we think we should have or want, etc. So it's really always about aligning our personality with our soul. That integration, that alignment is a lifelong journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens as we continue to evolve and wake up. So this full moon is being supported by Pluto, enabling us to really anchor and strengthen our own sense of self and self-worth, whatever that means for us at this point in our life. And the Mercury retrograde is interesting there with this full moon, because there are still some matters that need to be understood further. So the Mercury is still probing in, going in, investigating, looking at things. There's a lot of things that still haven't been completed. They're not finalized because Mercury is retrograde. But regardless of that, just pay attention to the Vesta moon energy in the sign of Taurus, and where is it that you can actually apply a sense of focus and commitment of something that's really important to your heart, that means a lot to you. The ability for this is there during this full moon. And another way of saying it would be to say that the full moon, because the full moon illuminates things, it's going to show you, it's going to help you see what it is that you can or need to apply more focus and dedication, and maybe sacrifice as well, but all bringing it back to your own sense of self. Okay, I think that's about it in terms of this full moon. It's very, very powerful, without a doubt. It's not going to it's not going to, as I said before, it's not going to, spin us out. It's a really grounding, beautiful grounding energy, with beautiful Vesta right there with the beautiful lunar goddess. So think about what it is you really want to focus on from your heart center, and where you're going to apply that commitment and that focus, how you're going to apply yourself to that, so that you can have a better sense of your own self-worth, and how you can anchor and ground that within you, stabilize that force within you, so that as you proceed forward, there's a much stronger foundation sense of who you are and your own worth. Because again, at the end of the day, the more work you do on yourself, self-love, this is about self-love, self-care. The more you do of that in your own journey for yourself, the better the world will be. The better your relationships will be. And the more you have to give and offer. We can't be drained and disconnected from our own self-love and self-worth, and expect to be happy and expect to receive that from everybody else around us. because anybody that gives you something has the same power to take it away. Just like that. So it feels great when someone's giving you love, giving you attention, giving you affection, admiring you, encouraging you, supporting you, loving you, whatever. It feels wonderful. But the minute that person steps back and pulls that away, it's like pulling the carpet from underneath your feet. And that is the case when you have not created this inner sense of self-worth, this inner foundation, this inner landscape that enables you to give love to yourself. It's, this is nothing new. It's not a new way of thinking. This way of thinking has been around forever. But through these beautiful transits and beautiful full moons and new moons and so forth, we have an opportunity every time to have more insight about this, to have a greater connection to it, to reestablish, to reconnect, back to our own self. Because again, whatever we give to another, we give back to ourselves anyway. So if it's love, then we're giving love back to ourselves. If we are giving abuse or anger, we're giving that back to ourselves as well. So it's an interesting, how can I put it? It's an interesting sort of field of paradoxes in a way, because we always have to give back to ourselves, recenter ourselves. And we're always, in one way or another, giving to others as well. But that giving to others it's the same as what we're giving back to ourselves. So it just goes back and forth. So have a think about those points, guys, and hopefully what I shared speaks to you and enables you to reflect on what this means for you. Naturally pay attention to where the full moon is in your birth chart. That's going to add the field, the area of life where these matters of what I've spoken about are being highlighted. So these matters will possibly draw another person in some kind of way in terms of your field of relationships, whether it's family, friends, friendships. It could be in the professional world. It could be, it just depends where the full moon is in your chart. So the house placement is the field of experience of where these matters become highlighted. So just pay attention to that. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Thanks so much for watching, and sending you all much love and blessings, and happy full moon in Taurus. And really allow yourself to get back in touch with your own body, your own self, and ground, earthwork, bodywork, earthing. Earthing is a really great way to get back in touch with the body, such as walking on grass barefoot. It's one of the most powerful ways to feel the magnetic earth energy. Okay, bye for now. Thanks.